Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to get started here. I'm going to go through the science of getting rich, and I will put up the questions from the workbook here in just a moment. So, session one, the science of getting rich, the original classic. This is by Catherine Tonder, wrote the Catherine Ponder. I was close. So she says, when I began to study and later teach and write on the subject of prosperity, Wallace D. Wattles was among my early influences. I marveled then, as I do now, at the succinct, deliberate, direct, unapologetic, and uncompromising way he wrote on the subject as of 1910. It has been said that poverty, this is in quotes, poverty is a form of hell caused by man's blindness to God's good. The author knew this as he explained, firstly, the psychology of wealth, and secondly, the definite steps to attain it. He further stated that there is a science to get rich, and anyone can do it. Indeed, it is your right to be rich, and your life will be incomplete without it. That's kind of true. Many success-themed authors followed him later in the 20th century and into the 21st century, but none have surpassed his simple message. Rich or poor, it's good to have money. This book shows you how to do this and much more. Enjoy. Here's an introduction by Tom Butler Bowden. This is Wallace D. Wattles says this. Life has advanced so far and become so complex that even the most ordinary man or woman requires a great amount of wealth in order to live in a manner that approaches completeness. Think about that for a second. To understand the science of getting rich is therefore the most essential of all knowledge. Let me read that one more time. Life has advanced so far and become so complex that even the most ordinary man or woman requires a great amount of wealth in order to live in a manner that even approaches completeness. To understand the science of getting rich is therefore the most essential of all knowledge. Wallace D. Wattles. In 2004, Australian television executive Rhonda Byrne was at a breaking point. A divorced mother of two dealing with her father's recent death. She was also having business problems. Her accountant had just phoned her to say that she was only a couple of months away from going broke. This is when she's pulling the suitcase across the thing in the opening of The Secret. She was a couple of months away from going broke and still had 2 films to complete. At home one day, she poured out her troubles to her daughter, Haley, who listened and tried to reassure her. She came back a minute later with a bundle of photocopied pages and gave them to her mother. It was a copy of The Science of Getting Rich. In the movie, they call it The Little Green Book. That's what it was known to so many by, The Little Green Book. It was known to me as The Little Green Book when I first started doing this 24 years ago. The old book lit a fire in me, she recalls. It was exactly the opposite of the way I thought life worked. Let me say that again, because if you're listening to this and you're struggling right now and you keep on doing what you're doing and you keep on saying what you're saying, it was exactly opposite. And this is the hard part for many people. We think that we need to downsize, we need to right size, we need to capsize, we need to eliminate stuff. Maybe it's just the opposite. Maybe you need to pour on more stuff. Maybe you need to get serious about what the opposite of your life currently looks like. If you're struggling, if you're not struggling, then don't worry about it. But if you're struggling, maybe the opposite is what you're really, really needing. It was exactly the opposite of the way I thought life worked. She began researching the roots of Wattles' philosophy, and within a year produced her famous film, The Secret, made for only $3 million. The Secret sold 2 million copies and downloaded and DVD format. The sales of the book version passing millions of copies, though it was based on interviews with contemporary law of attraction leaders. She was quick to credit Wattles as her original inspiration. After a century of relative obscurity, Her work brought Wattles back into the limelight. See, some of you don't even know it was Wattles that was the secret behind the secret. Yet even now, what do we really know about Wattles or his book? There's little known about Wallace D. Wattles. There really is. There's little known. To understand the science of getting rich and its power, we must get a sense of the time and the context in which it was written. We'll also briefly discuss its companion work, The Science of Being Great. Wattles's world, say that 10 times fast. In the 1890s and 1900s, many people felt oppressed by a system where great industrial truths and extremely wealthy individuals held sway. Anybody feel like that now? Bill Gates is often seen as the richest capitalist of our age, but in relative times, he did not match the wealth of Rockefeller and Carnegie in their time. So I'm going to also read you. I don't know if you can see, you'll see here, I have a whole bunch of notes in the different pages throughout the book. I'll share those with you as well. Couldn't match the wealth of Rockefeller or Carnegie in their time. In a more brutal economic era without safety nets. This is the introduction by Tom Butler Bowden. It was a more brutal economic era without safety nets. The average person clung on to jobs they hated or kept up businesses they weren't doing well in for fear of slipping through the cracks entirely. So I have underlined safety nets. So my question to you is this: how many safety nets do people believe they have? What are you calling a safety net that's actually, listen carefully, a snare? See, if I was talking to somebody today and they were talking about, this is a traditional business owner, they were talking about their business and they wanted to close an out-of-state branch of theirs. And I said, well, is it profitable? Well, it doesn't lose money. Well, in some parts of business, right, that's a good thing. So we talked about some of the things that were going on, and long story short, there was a huge resource that he was not tapping into that he could eventually tap into. And so we had that conversation. We're going to do more of that conversation. So my question is that in the reduction, in losing the talent pool, the skill sets, the skill pool that he had available to him, because he was leveraging those individuals in his in-state operation as well, closing it down was actually a snare, not a safety net. Do y'all understand the difference between a snare and a safety net? A snare is what you catch prey with. A safety net is what you have so you don't fall and hit the ground. Too many people think that they're working at their job, or that network marketing is their safety net. For many people, it's their snare. They never make any money. They never do the right things. They never do the follow-up, and it's a snare. It's a drain on their economy, on their energy. So how do we shift a snare? How do we change a snare into a safety net? And then how do we make sure that we never need the safety net? That's called the science of getting rich. It's called your thoughts. This is all about thinking. In a more brutal economic era without safety nets, the average person clung to jobs that they hated and kept a business that they weren't doing well in for fear of slipping through the cracks entirely. From a poor rural family himself, Wallace Delois, Delois, Wattles, would not have escaped such fears. Not a great deal is known about his early life. He was born in rural Illinois in 1860. Father died when he was only 10, but his mother remained a strong part of Wallace's life. Later living with him and his own family, which included wife Abby, son Russell, and daughters Florence and Agnes. I'm just reading my notes. Wattles had enjoyed only rudimentary school education and for several years worked as a farm laborer. However, by his mid-30s, he had attained reasonable, although hardly lucrative, position in a Methodist church. Though the records are scant, we can assume it was a ministry role. It's so shocking that we know so little about his beginnings, right? Such a powerful book that's still used today. A New Direction. In a time of change in American church circles, Wattles became attracted to reform preachers like George D. Heron, who was spreading the word of the social gospel, which held that Christ must be at the center of economic and social life. I think maybe that's why some people don't talk about it, because there's a lot of God in these words. When in December 1896, he saw Heron, the gentleman, speak at a conference in Chicago, it changed Wattles's life. Heron was controversial. For his examination of life and teachings of Jesus, he argued that a form of socialism was the most humane and equitable form of political organization, in distinction to the ruthless, dehumanizing forces of capitalism. Christian socialists rallied around the industrial I know it's like despotism. Maybe that's how it's said. Of the late 19th century of America, when its concentration of wealth and power with its concentration of wealth and power in a chosen few. The system had led to corruption and monopolies and crushed the ability of individuals to determine their destinies. The system had led to corruption and monopolies and crushed the ability of individuals to determine their destinies. A lot of people believe that there's still monopolies out there, that you can't have it, you can't go into a certain area and create an income. There's ones that have a lot of competition, but there's also ones that don't, and there is no monopoly on success. There just isn't. Record this because it's going to YouTube, but we'll start here. This is even worse. This view held the established churches in America had offered no resistance to the damage that raw capitalism had done to the fabric of society. Even worse, this view held, the view of these individuals, that the established churches in America had offered no resistance to the damage that raw capitalism had done to the fabric of society. Their unholy alliance with big industry was light years from what Christ would have wanted, Heron believed. And as he put it in one of his tracts, the possession of power over others is inherently destructive both to the possessor of the power and to those over whom it is exercised. Wallace left that conference convinced of these ideas, but inevitably ran counter to the Methodist Church. Forced out of his job by the church, he began writing articles for the Nautilus, a popular magazine based on New Thought, spiritual principles run by Elizabeth Town. In these articles, he developed a distinctive writing and philosophy, and they became, along with weekly talks, his main source of income. Left the church, right? Could you imagine if you were his wife, what was his wife's name? There's Abby, which included his wife, Abby. Yes. Could you imagine going home? Abby, I got kicked out of the church. I no longer have that job because I think differently. The Right Way to Riches. This is still by the introduction by Tom Butler Bowden. The Right Way to Riches. Wattles was by all accounts a loving father and husband and took his breadwinner role seriously. He naturally wanted to give his family everything they wanted, and this meant attaining a level of private wealth. Write that down. Write that down for you. Can you have private wealth? Not just private 401k, private wealth. Yet he was not prepared to give up on Christian or socialist beliefs. How to reconcile the two. When he sat down to write The Science of Getting Rich, it may have helped that Heron, the original inspiration, had become tarnished by a divorce scandal, and his supporters had ebbed away. His supporters had ebbed away. So this guy, back then, right, till death do us part, minister in the church, highly sought after, highly vocal, a divorce scandal, and everybody kind of skipped aside. He may have felt free to pursue a less dogmatic version of the Christian state. Indeed, compared to an early book he wrote, Jesus, the Man and His Work, The Science of Getting Rich does not assume Christian belief on the part of the reader. Wattles had, anyway, been absorbing the ideas and teachings of a wide range of philosophers and thinkers, among those Leibniz, I don't know how to say it, Hegel and Schopenhauer, Emerson, Swedenborg. He was also influenced by Eastern religion. The philosophical and spiritual journey had brought him to the monastic view of the universe, which holds that everything in space and time is a flowering or expression of the one spiritual substance. Monisms lack the distinction between spirit and matter, implied that we could bring together whatever we wanted into our lives merely through the power of directed, listen carefully, directed, purposeful thought. How many of us are responding or reacting to life situations? What does Joe Dispenza say? Your personal reality makes up your personal reality. That's thinking, that's purposeful thought, or your personal reality makes up your personality. That's where 98% of the population sit. They let their personal reality determine their personality. Wattles believed that he had found the secret to prosperity. It did not involve battling others on the bloody field of capitalism, but instead developed a greater attunement to the universal laws. This was the heart of his science of wealth creation. Metaphysically, Wattles could not justify the pursuit of wealth, but he knew that his potential audience was after something more direct and useful. So he couldn't justify his pursuit of wealth, but he knew his audience was looking for something more direct and useful. So in the first lines of Science of Getting Rich, he notes that this is, quote, not a treatise upon theories, but rather intended for men and women whose most pressing need is for money. He wanted to enrich readers, but he also needed, given his principles and the circles he moved in, he also needed to avoid any of the grasping and greed of the capitalist ethos. This book affirms that the desire to have more and to get more is good, a natural part of being human, and what God wants for us. Yet such desires are to be realized through the creative expression of the individual, not as a pawn in some battle between capitalist titans. The creative pursuit of a calling led to genuine abundance, whereas fighting with another over a particular resource or market rested on the false belief in scarcity, and was ultimately a life-defeating exercise. Let me say that again. The creative pursuit of a calling led to genuine abundance, whereas fighting another over a particular resource or market rested on false belief in scarcity and was ultimately a life-defeating exercise. You could stop reading the book right there. We must move from the competitive mind to the creative mind. How do we create gratitude? What can we create? How do we make gratitude become alive in our world? We start to talk about it. We say thank you a lot. This book, the spirituality right way, the spiritually right way, he argued, is through creative endeavor that expresses our individuality. This is a book of essence, but let's go deeper. Why you need to be rich. You must get rid of the last vestige of the old idea that there is a deity whose will it is that you should be poor and whose purposes may be served by keeping you in poverty. Let me say that again. You must rid yourself of the last vestige of the old idea that there is a deity whose will it is that you should be poor, or whose purposes may be served by keeping you in poverty. Christian belief in Waddell's era came with a lot of baggage about money and wealth. Many believed that poverty meant purity. Many believed that poverty meant purity. Some of that's just a generation ago. And wealth equated to sin. Against this, Waddell argues that the nature of life is continuous increase and expansion. Therefore, to grow and develop into anything we can be, we must be able to get our hands on the things we need. In his words, we must get rich so that we can live more. Can't argue with that. You just can't. We want more. We must get rich so we can live more. This is a shift in our awareness and our psychology. The same thing that makes plants want to grow is what gives us the urge for more. It is simply life, write this down, life seeking fuller expansion. That's who you are. That's what we do in network marketing. Life seeking fuller expression and expansion. On a practical level, the complexity and advanced nature of modern life means that the average person has to command a lot more resources in order to live a full life. You need money to fulfill any talents you have, and you have the time to allow your soul's development to unfold. Money to travel, to buy books, to surround yourself with art and beauty, all of which enrich the mind and make it more likely you can live a complete life. When you are a physical body and a brain in a world governed by time and space, it is no use thinking of yourself as a spiritual being alone. To fulfill your spiritual potential, paradoxically, you will need to have command of physical resources, of things. Learning how to become rich, therefore, is the most essential of all knowledge. Wallace ascertained this. What makes you rich? Title of the next paragraphs. What brings about wealth? Not environment alone, Wallace observes. If it was, all people in a neighborhood or city would be rich, while those in another would be poor. In fact, you would find rich people and poor people often in very similar backgrounds living near each other. It's not a matter of choosing the right profession either, because people get rich in every field. If then, given access to similar resources, one person stays poor while the other becomes rich, is there not a certain way that the rich person follows to do well? The certain way is not talent, because plenty of people with little talent become rich, while those with seemingly much are poor. In fact, Wallace observes, the rich do not possess talents measurably greater than the poor. Wallace observes, the rich do not possess talents measurably greater than the poor. Yet neither is wealth the result of thrift alone, since free spenders often end up rich. As Wallace bluntly puts it, talented people get rich and blockheads get rich. Intellectually brilliant people get rich and very stupid people get rich. If anybody else in your town can get rich, so can you. And if anybody in your state can get rich, so can you. You obviously need a basic ability to think, understand, and act. But beyond that, there is no requirement for brilliance. So, what does increase the probability you will get rich? This book gives you some common sense advice. Go into a business which requires go into a business you like, which requires the expression of your talents. Work in a business in the right location, where it is likely to have a good market, and make sure your field or industry is growing. Many people blame external circumstances for their current position, but Wattles warns us never to think that we are being kept down by a quote unquote boss, company, or system. We are where we are today because we simply have not bothered to understand the laws of wealth. Always more than enough. To make the most of the science of getting rich, we will have to grasp its underlying philosophy of abundance. Portraying nature as an inexhaustible storehouse of riches, Wallace noted that when a particular resource appears to run low, humans always find or develop another, because develop another or better resource to take its place. Running short is a false concept, because the nature of the universe is perpetual creation. The nature of universe is perpetual creation. One of the more powerful lines in the book is, there can be no lack unless God is to contradict himself and nullify his own works. That's kind of a kick in the chest to anybody who has faith, right? And believes and wants to spout off chapter and verse of the Bible, and they struggle and suffer. There can be no lack unless God is to contradict himself and nullify his work. Lack has no objective reality and is simply the absence of abundance. By focusing on abundance alone, we are forced on the essential truth of the universe. If you have ever wondered why there are incredible riches in the world, yet you yourself are not, Wallace said it's because you have become too focused on what you don't have. Instead, you must really appreciate the wealth and see yourself as part of its flow. Change your mindset from the need to get money and begin living in the representation of prosperity itself. Mental mechanics of prosperity. Every chapter ends with a 3-point statement, which readers are asked to make basics of their new life, which readers are asked to make the basis of their new life. The Science of Getting Rich, Wattles states, begins with the absolute acceptance of this faith. In essence, it says, behind the physical appearance of the universe is a thought substance or field of thought, variously called substance or the formless. That's number one. Number two, what is imagined in this field becomes reality. 3, human beings, when they impress an individual thought within the universal field, within the universal thought field, see it naturally become realized. There is only one thinking substance from which all things are made. So aligning yourself with the source's field of thought means you become a sort of co-creator. You share its intelligence and creative power. However, you must recognize that it, capital I-T, it, and not the world of appearances, is the real truth that moves the universe. Let me say that again. You must recognize that it, the formless substance, the thinking stuff, and not the world as it appears or the appearances of the world, is the real truth. You must recognize that it, the formless substance, is the real truth that moves the universe. Impress within this universal field a thought you want, and it cannot avoid coming to pass. Some years later, Catherine Ponder, Dionne of modern prosperity writes, see the forward, echoed Waddell's thoughts when she wrote that the first thing a person must do to move into a state of prosperity is to recognize that, quote, God is the source of your supply, unquote. That is not the person's, example, boss, family member, or a particular condition, the economy, that apparently determine your prosperity. Nothing outside of you controls your prosperity. And when you come to that realization, everything changes. This is, of course, difficult to do, but both she said and Waddles believed it to be the essence of personal power. A person who does not become, who does so becomes the master of their destiny and can have what they want. How it actually comes. If our desires are heartfelt and beneficent to all, we shouldn't be shy about asking largely. Waddles remembers that promise from the Bible. It is your Father's pleasure to give you the kingdom. What? Yet what we want is never conjured out of thin air as if by a genie. If we have impressed the image of it onto the universal thought field, Wallace notes, it will surely come to us, but through the ways of established trade and commerce. So we don't need to know the how strategy. It will come to us through any means possible. We can relax and know that what we need will come, often in surprising ways. And there is never a limited supply. We don't have to hurry, snatch, covet, or steal. The universe naturally wants you to have everything you need to grow and advance. But Waddles includes this caveat. What you do in life must be in harmony with its good purposes. This means not desiring to be rich in order to live a life of excess, existing only for bodily pleasures, not desiring to be rich just to please your ego, hankering after fame or to outshine others, and not desiring to be rich only to save mankind. Such nobility is certainly a part of life, but not all of it. God does not want you to sacrifice yourself for others. God does not want you to sacrifice yourself for others. God does not want you to sacrifice yourself for others. Extreme altruism is as much a mistake as selfishness. Extreme giving is as much a mistake as selfishness. Instead, Waddle says, you can help others more by making the most of yourself than in any other way. By you becoming your best version of you, you can help the most people. It's time to get rich. Inspiring and spreading prosperity. This is a big introduction. Things are not brought into being by thinking about their opposites. Okay, book over, close, go to work. Things are not brought into being by thinking about their opposites. I'm so fat. I want to be skinny. I'm so fat. I want to be skinny. The universe is going, I don't know. Pick a choice. Pick a side. Pick a side. Any side will make it come true. Wallace writes, if you want to help the poor, don't go about studying the causes or effects of poverty. What did Bob Proctor say? If you want to be rich, don't hang around poor people. Don't go study why poverty works, how it happened, how you got there. Instead, get rich yourself so you can inspire the poor. Charity may help for time, but people only ever lift themselves out of poverty by being inspired to do so. If you do ever speak of the poor, he advises, speak of them in an air of congratulation, never pity, for they are on their way to wealth. I say that again. If you ever do speak of the poor, he advises, speak of them with an air of congratulation, never pity, for they are on their way to wealth. Say, I'm on my way to wealth, baby. I'm getting on the wealth train. Woo, woo. Never talk about your past financial troubles. Wait, what? Game over. Never talk about your financial troubles. You are bringing it into existence. I don't know what else you need to remember. Never talk about your past financial troubles, which will mentally class you with the poor. And furthermore, never speak of times as being hard or of business conditions being doubtful. We haven't even gotten into the book yet. Never speak of times as being hard or of business conditions being doubtful. If you have accepted a certain new way of seeing the universe, don't let yourself be exposed to the conflicting ideas. How many of you had conflicting ideas today? Think of riches. Think of the riches the world is coming into instead of the poverty it is growing out of. Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. Think of the riches of the world. Think of the riches the world is coming into as opposed to the poverty it's growing out of. In whatever line of work or business you are in, you will succeed and prosper to the extent that you offer others the possibility of increasing what they have, be it things, money, love, or health. As Wattles puts it, all men and women are attracted to him who can give them more of the means of life. Now, it might sound medieval, but if somebody says, so what do you do? I help people, I give people the chance to have more to the means of their life. Most people wouldn't even understand that. But isn't that what you do in network marketing? Isn't that what you do as a coach? Isn't that what you do in anything that you do? Keep the image in your mind at all times that you are a person who advances others, who brings more life, more wealth to all. Let this be your golden rule. Let this be the golden rule. I want for myself, I want for everybody. What I want for myself, I want for everybody. Becoming the creator, not the competitor. Bold headline. You must get rid of the thought of competition. You are to create, not to compete for what is already created. You do not have to take anything away from anyone. You do not have to drive sharp bargains. Central to the book's message is that as unique, sovereign individuals, you are unique, you are a sovereign individual. We progress most easily in life by expressing that individuality, right? You're an original. Don't be a copy. It is unwise and unproductive to think that we need to advance ourselves at the expense of others. Battling to get laws changed or rallying against bankers who want to waste our energies. When you are in the competitive mind, Wallace notes, you have lost the cooperation of the mind of the whole, the thinking stuff. When you're in a competitive state, you lose the formless substance. The gains you make on the plane of competition either do not last, yours today and another's tomorrow, or they are spiritually unsatisfying. Competing suggests that there is a finite supply of something that all must fight for. But in fact, if we are all trying to realize our personal vision of how things should be, then there is no end to new products, services, and wealth. You will have plenty of opportunities. When you get out of the competitive mind, you will understand that you never need to act hastily. No one else is going to beat you to the thing you want to do. No one is going to beat you to the thing you want to do. There is enough for all. If one space is taken, another and better one will be open for you a little farther on. There is plenty of time. When you are in doubt, wait. With echoes of the economic crisis that would almost certain with echoes of a world economic crisis that would come almost a century after his book was published, Wattles writes, the more men who get rich on the competitive plane, the worse for others. The more who get rich on the creative plane, the better for others. He warns that if you are currently in a business that doesn't give people real value or take advantage of them, get out of it at once. Gratitude. The whole process of getting in tune with universal law, Wattles says, can be summed up in one word: gratitude. This is still the introduction. He observes that many people who order their lives rightly in all other ways are kept in poverty by the lack of gratitude. Many people who order their lives rightly, they do all of the right things in all ways, are kept in poverty by their lack of gratitude. The grateful mind is constantly fixed upon the best. Therefore, it tends to become the best. It takes the form of character of the best and will receive the best. By contrast, focus on what is bad or squalid in your life and what you don't have, and you start to go backwards. Such thoughts firmly implant you where you are. Such thoughts firmly implant you where you are with no hope of moving on. Gratefulness for what you do have opens doors to more. This is because gratitude connects us with the power that gives and sustains life. And the closer we live to the source of all wealth, the more wealth we shall receive. Final thoughts. This is a work that could only have come out of the capitalistic society. This is a work that could only have come out of a capitalist society. And yet it steadfastly denounces the competitive instinct and any kind of material grasping, putting in its place the emphasis on creativity, cooperation, and gratitude. Wattles even praises the cooperative enterprises that begun to spring up in Europe in his time, designed to benefit workers and their communities. So this is a strange paradox of the science of getting rich. It was written by a socialist, yet perhaps his blend of socialist vision and money making is not so incongruent after all. In time, while lightly regulated capitalism in the financial world has been to blame for such misery, Wattles' ideas can be seen in a new light. His vision of people expressing their gifts and being rewarded for it, with everyone finding their place in the economy as a valued member, now looks enlightened. Given the author's political and spiritual background, we can be assured that The Science of Getting Rich is not a greed manual, but guides the reader to riches and abundance in an honorable way. Wattles' legacy. Wattles' concepts are not scientific in the normal sense of the word, and yet he was convinced that the certain way he advocated would not fail to provide great increase. Did Wattles himself become rich? There seems to be no records of his estate after his tragically early death at 50 from tuberculosis. But according to his daughter Florence, he did. In his last years achieved real prosperity. Writing to her father's friend, and publisher of Nautilus, Elizabeth Town, just after the event, she noted, in the last 3 years, he made lots of money and had good health, except for his extreme frailty. The Science of Getting Rich outlived its author and continues to serve its intended purpose as a piece of writing. It is traveled well, thanks in part to its author's use of simple language and only minor reference to peoples and events of his time. Wattles clearly spent time polishing the work to increase its impact and power. Florence's letter, reproduced in the following chapter, apart from being one of the few records we have of Wattles' life, gives a sense of someone who never gave up the vision for a better world. Getting Rich and Being Great. The Science of Getting Rich was actually written as the first part of the trilogy, including The Science of Being Great, or How to Be a Genius, and The Science of Being Well. Though we have no specific information on why Wattles wrote The Science of Being Great, in presenting Wattles' overall philosophy of life, it forms a perfect companion to a more focused Science of Getting Rich. That's why we have chosen to place the two texts in this one volume. Why The Science of Getting Rich became more famous can be considered one of the mysteries of publishing. But The Science of Being Great, it itself is a remarkable work. To make it your sole reference book for self-development, ignoring all others would not put you at a disadvantage. In it, Wattles reminds us that there are no common people, and there is a genius in every man and woman waiting to be brought forth. He notes that all life's experiences are designed by providence to force men and women to cease being creatures of circumstances and master their environment. We must always be reminded that we are not victims of heredity, and he points out, but can truly make our world. The book is perhaps more theological than Getting Rich, and yet far from being a religious nut. Wallace urges his readers to study Darwin, among others, and above all, think for themselves. Both books provide a rational justification for why every human being naturally deserves more out of life. The Science of Getting Rich, Wattles demonstrates why it is quite right that we should want more wealth in order to fulfill our potential in every way in life. The Science of Being Great, he states, man is formed for growth, and he is under the necessity of growing. It is essential to his happiness that he should continuously advance. One page left. Wanting more, getting more, being more is nothing to be ashamed of, but simply how things are meant to be in the universe. While both writings stress that there is a cosmic intelligence as unseen order that moves in the universe, The Science of Being Great, Wattles convincingly argues that a person who consciously attunes themselves to this force cannot help but become great. Since they become a vehicle for the perfect expression of divine intention. He makes the point that all great people exhibit unwavering faith and are fully aware that the chief challenge of life and its chief successes is to be able to replace fear with faith on a daily basis. Such a person apprehends the world as it exists today to be all good, and knows that they have a part to play in its being brought to completion. Most of the problems we see, Wattles argues, are the result of people simply being unwilling to sit alone and think things through. Yet this kind of concentrated thought, he notes, is another trait common to all people of genuine power. Both books use plain English and bombastic titles, but both books use plain language and bombastic titles. Both are rather short. Each has the qualities of concentrate, distilling a lifetime of meditation, observation, and spiritual revelation. As Wattles wrote 3 books of this type, he evidently felt he had finally found the right form for his teaching. Both sciences weave their timeless logic onto the reader. Together, they form an unbeatable combination of success in all aspects of life, to be financial, ethical, intellectual, or spiritual. Oh, be it financial, ethical, intellectual, or spiritual. Tom Bowden, 2010. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Thoughts, comments, takeaways.
I have a question.
Yes.
So my book doesn't have an introduction, or did I buy the wrong book? Is there
No,
different
you
versions?
bought a good book. This is The Science of Getting Rich, the classical. It comes in a two-pack. Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich and this one together.
Oh, so I bought it on Kindle. So is that why I don't have that?
I don't know. I don't. It could be. Could be.
Yeah, Louise is nodding her. Okay, so I have to actually get the hard copy.
You don't have to. I just read it. It's now recorded. You can have it.
That's true. Okay, thank you.
You're
Thank you very
welcome.
much.
Who else? Thoughts, comments, questions? What'd you learn? What'd you like? What's your takeaways?
I've always loved Wallace D. Wattles.
Yep.
And the thing that every time I read it, and it's from The Science of Getting Rich, he talks about how people who study disease are sick. People who study poverty are poor. Their intention is to make a difference, but they've got it backwards. And I thought, oh yeah, that makes sense. Quite frankly, until recently, it was the way I was operating. I've got to get out of this mess. I've got to get out of this mess.
Well,
I've got to get out of this mess.
and it only knows that you got a mess, right?
Yeah. And so it's the and now getting into self-talk, there he alludes to it, but he doesn't actually make a statement about it's important. Your words are important. And I just was I don't know if you know anything about that. I just thought, I wonder, was self-talk something in that era that
Well, what does it say? Think about it. Listen to the words. Now, they didn't call it self-talk,
he talked about
neuroplasticity.
focus.
Well, they talk about a thought held in the substance.
Oh, yes.
So that's self-talk.
Yes. Okay.
Right? That's the power of words. A thought held in the substance produces the thing held by the thought. It's the ability of sustained thought. Emerson said, probably before Wattles, the most difficult thing man will ever do is the idea of sustained thought. So it's all about words. And it's about what he gets into is the 7 universal laws.
Yes.
Right? Chapter 7 is the biggest chapter in the book.
Yeah, and it is the gratitude. It's
on gratitude.
Amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, well, I had a thought, but it went out one ear and just went right. It just kind of passed through like an express train through a station. I go, okay.
So
Maybe
ask the conductor to back the train up and see
like,
if the thought comes back.
Yoo-hoo! It had to do with thought, and that thought, there is nothing, and I believe this is in this science of it's either the science, I think it's in the science of being great. I can't remember. Anyway, that thought, there is nothing, not a thing that didn't start with thought. And I love challenging my littles when I have them periodically to name something that didn't start with a thought. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Anyway, I love Wallace D. Wattles. That was really cool, that background, that introduction. There's more history there than I ever knew about him. And that's probably all there is to know about him.
The key is understanding that this is Thomas Bowden's perception of Wallace D. Wattles.
Oh, yes. Oh,
right?
yes.
So a lot of great stuff, a lot of understanding. I think it's to give the little trustees the little teaser of what to expect when you begin to involve yourself in the book. We didn't even get, next is the letter from the daughter. We haven't even gotten into chapter 1.
That book, that's part of that book. I have it in my cart. I just haven't ever ordered it.
Yeah. The Science of Getting Rich, the original classic. Yep.
Very cool.
Who else? Thoughts, comments, questions, takeaways? You bet. We're going through the whole thing because I'm
perfect timing, my friend.
Okay, good. Excellent.
Perfect timing between what you shared this morning and this. Just everything was perfect timing. And
God's
when
plan
you
usually is, and
feel
I do
your,
my best to listen.
I hear you. And when you feel a vibration from this expansion, it just lets you know you're on the right path. And kind of crazy this evening, I went to my wife and thanked her as I often do, and just expressed that I know there's so much more of me to come out, so much better version of me to come, and where most people my age are putting their feet up and relaxing and whatnot, I'm excited and fired up and ready to roll. So thank you for adding fuel to the fire.
You are welcome. And congratulations on your ask today and getting some feedback. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
Love it,
On we
love it, love it.
go. Another wonderful day. We're going to start an awesome month in February and ready to rock.
I'm ready to rock. Absolutely. Who else? Thoughts, comments, takeaways? Any lessons? Any last little tidbits? Okay. So this will be available on YouTube for a couple of days. Then it'll become unlisted and it'll be part of the 2.0 version of the Science of Getting Rich. So some of you have access. Many of you, I think, have access to the Science of Getting Rich. So I'm going to kind of update it and upgrade it. And because that, I think, is a couple of years old already. I forget what episode. It was in the hundreds of episodes, wasn't in the thousands. So kind of cool. I'm excited. I like it. I love Waddles. So. Anyone else? Any last thoughts, comments, questions before I let you go?
Sorry, where did you say that it would be, Sean?
It'll be live. This is on YouTube, right? So this is living streaming to YouTube. And I'm doing that so that the recording is there. It'll be here for a few days and then it'll be unlisted. It'll be then added to a Science of Getting Rich 2.0 conversation.
Oh, is that where the Nest stuff is in YouTube?
Yes.
Okay. And I used to get those, but I can't find it. I've looked everywhere for it.
Okay. I'll have to, let me see if I tag you in it or I'll drop the link somewhere in the go for whatever the accountability group is y'all have. So I'll do that. Yep. But I'll have to look.
I always enjoy reading that book. I always get something out of it because you have a way of tweaking that.
Yeah.
And this morning I had a very interesting morning. I should have just skipped in and came to your call. The BNI call group I went to this morning, and they're all young people. I know quite a number of them. And it's funny, they were all not well. I just said they were unwell. And like I did my little 2-second thing, and I said, it's so one of the guys calling, he knows me quite well and he knows what I do and all this. And I said, I can help you with that. And he goes, oh, I've been sick for 7 days. I don't have any energy. I'm not sleeping. And he goes, but no, it's okay. It's okay. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. I just get a rest. And so I did. I asked the question that you gave us to ask the other day. What is it now? I said, 20 years from now, what do you want to be? Better health or worse health? In a wellness home or a nursing home? And I now know the look you get when people think you're crazy, Sean. They looked at me as if to say, who in the heck are you? And I said, there it is. That's what Sean's talking about.
Now we can talk shop. People, this is a crazy look question. And you've just got to be so confident in it and then ask it again. And when they go, what are you talking about? Well, let me ask the question a different way. And you say, you've heard me do it. I say it the exact same way and they hear it differently. You want to be in a wellness home or do you want to be in a nursing home? Which one?
Yes, I just thought it was really funny. But I didn't do I didn't re-ask the question in a different way.
That's
So
okay. Well, that's again, because you got the look the first time. You're like, oh my God, that's the look. And you were too excited. I got the look. Yeah.
I did. It
That's
just,
crazy.
that was it for me. I was ready to leave. It was okay. I got the look. I know where I
Got the
am.
look. Yeah, baby. Number one.
Yeah, but when you do the reading and you do these, and it's the way you look at things, and it's also the state. It always goes back to that and gratitude. So that was good. Thank you.
You
I
are
needed
welcome.
it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love it. Love it. Love it. So cool. All right. All good. Any last questions, thoughts, comments?
I have a quick share.
Yes, go ahead, please.
So I decided to clean my desk and it's not a fun thing, but as I'm going through paperwork, I found a check that I did not cash for $136. So I'm going to put that into February 1st so that I can pay towards my payment for February. And I'm working to whittle down my amount that comes from other people, not from me.
I love it.
So I guess I should
listen.
clean my desk more often.
Yeah. Well, the key is that God wants you to be rich.
Mm.
He's given us everything. He gave us his son. He gave us everything anything that he could give. Free will. It's all right there. It's as close as your desk. It's as close as your skin. If that's not as close as your skin, I don't know what is. That's way cool. That's super cool. It happens just like that.
Just like that. And I thought of you right away.
that I get that a lot. I love that. That's awesome. Congratulations, Ruth. Did you jam through yourself?
No, what does that mean exactly?
So
Jim?
Joseph McClendon III says, all too often we don't give ourselves recognition for doing good things. So what he typically says is that go ahead, raise your hand, your right hand, lean forward, pat yourself on the back.
I see you do. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, so JM3, Joseph McClendon III. So JM3 yourself, that's what that means.
Got it.
Give yourself some atta girls and atta boys.
Thank you.
I love it. All right, everybody. So maybe as a extra bonus for those of you that were here, it'll make sense to you. I might do a meditation in the morning on chapter 1 of Science Getting Rich, and those things will get included in the chapters. We'll see. Meditate. And now that I've said that, right, I've planned. God will go, I got a better plan for you. So I'll just pay attention to it. Went to go take Gizmo for a walk today, and he didn't want to go. He wanted to stay with his girls. But yesterday we took him for a walk and literally walked him around the ranch. It was funny. He's such a goof. I love him. He's such a goof. Anyways, so there you go. All right, everybody. I love you tons. Get some rest. Enjoy your wealth. Dream big dreams. Ask big asks. And I'll see you where?
At the next event.
I love it, love it, love it. All right, everybody. Go have some fun tonight. Bye for now.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.